morning. On behalf of the Alliance of Women in Workers' Compensation, I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Today's webinar is entitled, Can We Really Have It All? This moderated panel with industry leaders was pre-recorded during Comp Laude in October of 2022 and is being broadcast today, January 12th, 2023. Before we get started, I would like to thank our 2023 corporate sponsors for their support on hosting events such as this. They support us not because they want their logos up on a screen, but they support the cause, which is to effect positive change in the workers' compensation industry through networking, supporting, mentoring, and collaboration. The Alliance is inclusive of all professionals in workers' compensation, regardless of career stage, with the belief that we can learn from and support each other. Our theme this year is Together Towards Tomorrow. Be sure to head to the Alliance website for all upcoming events. We are excited to be hosting webinars, collaboration sessions, and in-person events throughout 2023. Be sure to check back on our website for registration details. If you cannot make one of our virtual or in-person events, don't worry. Events will be recorded and on demand for our followers. The Alliance grew so much in 2022 as we launched several new chapters. Please be sure to connect with your local ambassador for upcoming events as you kick off your year with the Alliance. Change is preceded by trust. It is through acceptance and inclusion that trust will be formed and positive impact will occur. The Alliance is committed to creating a safe space in the workers' compensation industry for women of diverse backgrounds and experiences through a shared culture that integrates various perspectives. This is who we are and who we will be. The time to be better and do better is now. The Alliance understands that diversity is a journey that will take time to make meaningful changes for our organization, its followers, and supporters. We will be intentional in making progress along our key pillars of change. Turning to today's webinar. Today we will hear a panel led by Alliance board member Julie Fetterman. The age-old question has always been, can I really have it all? Can I be a top professional and have a thriving life and family? On top of work, we try and cram so much into our day to feel more balanced and whole through exercise, spiritual practice, spending quality time with our partner or friends, or nurturing our passions and hobbies to feed our soul. During the pandemic, we learned that we are all yearning for more balance, and we are better employees when we have accommodations for our family responsibilities or for self-care. Now the question is, how can we create more opportunities and flexibility in all areas of our life to nurture our desire and our success in having it all? In this session, our industry panelists will share their stories of balancing parenting, staying centered, and achieving professional success. We will hear about some of the biggest differences between pre- and post-pandemic era and the experiences that taught the biggest lessons in creating and maintaining balance. Our panelists today include Tamara Corbin, co-founder of the Rainbow Risk Alliance and VP Client Executive Director, Gallagher Bassett Services; Jennifer Lund, Senior Vice President at Global Risk Capital Insurance; Lindsay Garrett, Senior Director of Government Programs and Strategies at Walmart; and Brandy Lewis, President and Chairperson, HPT. Although this is a pre-recorded session, please feel free to share comments and questions with other attendees through the Zoom chat feature on your screen. We love seeing our followers engage throughout these sessions. Thank you so much for your time today, and we truly hope you enjoy this webinar.
Thank you guys so much for being here. It's such an honor to share this stage with you. Some of you I know personally as friends, and just want to thank you for being here and having this discussion on Can You Have It All? If you wouldn't mind, I'd love it if each of you would share a little bit about yourself with the audience so they can get to know the person behind the name and the company and the title here on the screen.
Am I on? I am on. I'm Jennifer Lund. I'm with Global Risk Capital Insurance. We are a brokerage here in Southern California, and I've been in the industry for 30 years. And it's an honor to be asked to speak here today. A little bit different than what I normally speak on, which is very deep into workers' comp. So I'm very excited to hopefully enlighten today. Hello?
Oh, it's on. They should be on.
Hello, I'm Tamara Corbin. I work with Gallagher Bassett. I've been in the industry for 27 years, mostly on the TPA claims side, workers' comp and liability claims. I'm in the client service area, been in that for about 15 years. And I also started an organization, nonprofit organization in 2021 for the LGBTQ plus community in our industry. I started the Rainbow Risk Alliance with a dear friend of mine, Will Kiesel, and we're going into our second year and really starting to get some traction, and we're really excited about where we're going with that.
Good morning, everybody. Hear me now? No. Okay, or I can just project. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lindsay Rabakoff. I'm a Senior Director 2 over at Walmart with Walmart Claims Services, and I lead our governance programs and strategies work, which is basically the everything else bucket outside of data analytics and systems and our work comp and general liability team. So licensing programs, financial processes and controls, the managed care program, all of the really fun work that we get to do to make sure that our injured associates are taken care of. Prior to joining Walmart, I had almost 20 years working for the Disneyland Resort down the street. This is home for me in a lot of ways, so it's good to be back. This was my first work comp conference, actually, so I'm a regular recurrence here over at Comp Laude. Prior to entering into the work comp industry, I worked as a labor and employment attorney, so non-traditional path. I'm probably the newest one to the industry on this stage with just under about 8 years in the industry on my belt. But there's a lot of parallels there between labor and employment law and workers' compensation. So nice to meet you all. Looking forward to it.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brandy Lewis. I am the chairperson for Health Plus Trans. We do nationwide translation interpretation. We've been in business for about 15 years now. As it relates to workers' compensation, it's something that I kind of fell into, but I love it. I love meeting beautiful women such as yourself, and we all have a different path. And what I find most is that everyone else has a different path. They didn't know that they were going to be in workers' comp. So to be here is an honor with these great women, and we look forward to conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. So the inspiration for this particular session really came from a post I was reading on LinkedIn several months ago. And I don't think Danielle Lisenby knows she was the inspiration for this, but she will now. She's also a founding member of the Alliance and a past board member. But she posted the question to her followers, is it possible to be a mom and still progress in your career? So for me, as a divorced woman, mother of 3, I'd just taken a leadership position in a startup tech company, this question kind of stopped me in my tracks, and I think it did that for many other women too, because in a matter of minutes, there were comments flooding her post talking about, yes, it's absolutely possible. You just have to be on the same page. You have to have a support system. We all know it takes a village, right? Some people said, I don't think you can have it all at the same time. And then others said, no, you can't, because one or the other is always suffering depending on where you put your attention to it. And these comments were even just talking about experiences leading up pre-pandemic, not talking about the challenges that we're all facing once we were forced to work from home, do everything from home, teach our kids, all the parenting, all the work, all the things. So there is a leading activist and author. Her name is Reshma Sajani, and she wrote a really incredible book on this topic called Pay Up, The Future of Women in Work. And she writes that we told women in order to break glass ceilings and succeed in their careers, all they needed to do was dream big, raise their hands, and lean in. But the data post-pandemic is telling a different story. Historic numbers of women left their jobs, and 51% of women say that their mental health has declined, while anxiety and depression rates have skyrocketed. What I think is interesting and what I'm excited to talk about with you guys today is that the issues and challenges we face in our family obligations and our career are really the same for all of us women, for Black, brown, white, straight, LGBTQ+, married, single, intern, or industry leadership. So what can we do to normalize and celebrate women who really want to choose to have it all? And importantly, how can we pave an easier path for the younger generation that are entering the workforce? And so let's get started. Jennifer and Tamara, I'm going to start with you. And what some of people in the room may not know is that you're also married. So as a married couple in the industry, raising 3 children together, and also having very successful careers, was there ever a time where you felt that you were making a consistent sacrifice in either your family responsibilities or maybe your career responsibilities in order to obtain fulfillment or success in the other?
So I'll go ahead and take that one. So yes, I did sacrifice my career, my children over my career, and I'm embarrassed to say that, but it was something that I did, and it's okay to be, transparent about that, right? I probably chose to pursue my career opportunities when I was younger. Obviously, my kids were toddlers, and so I chose to continue my career in client services. I, went on a lot of business trips. I traveled across the country. I realized, though, that was something that I felt like I had to do back in the day, right? Things have changed so much now. But I did make a conscious effort to switch jobs, switch companies, went to go work for Broadspire at the time, again, many years ago, so I could work from home. It was a remote work opportunity. It allowed me to work from home, be with my kids, not have to travel as much. So, those were just my circumstances back then, but today I've worked in a remote environment since 2007, so I've been able to engage with my children. I've been on conference calls when, my boys were wrestling on the floor, that kind of thing. Mommy's, when mommy has her door closed, don't come in, but they don't listen. They still come in. So, and Jen and I met in 2006. We were married in 2016, but living together in 2009. And she definitely helped, take on a lot of the responsibilities, even though she had a full-time career. So we kind of did it together, a partnership. And when I traveled, she was home. When she traveled, I was home. And we kind of worked through those things. But yeah, I think, in today's world, younger ladies have a little bit better opportunity, I think, to be able to work from home. Hopefully, with COVID, not that it's something positive that's come out of it, but I think it's really opened the eyes of a lot of corporations and companies to realize that you still can have productive employees and let them work from home. So I think you just need to find a happy balance there, and gives women an opportunity to be able to function and in both roles, parent and work.
Jen, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Sure, I'll add a little bit. When we got into our relationship, it was actually pretty exciting because she had 3 kids, and so I think it might have been easier for us with my excitement coming into it to prioritize and work remote and be able to take on the balance and shifting of the responsibilities of, taking care of the kids. And obviously, as they grow older, they start to be able to take care of themselves in some senses. And so I think that it worked really well, and it continues to work well, even though they're older. There's different priorities and different needs from them, certainly. And it has, I think, shown them that they can have it all too, the boys and the girls.
Thank you for saying that. I do think remote work has helped us tremendously in being able to better manage and balance some of that. I know that there's also that other side of it where you're working a lot more too, because you're never leaving the house. But that's a topic for another day. Some might argue that for women, the traditional workplace has been unfair from the beginning, asking us to hide parts of ourselves like family obligations because we might not be taken seriously in the workplace. So I'd like to ask you, Lindsay, have you ever felt like you had to conceal parts of yourself in order to progress in your career?
Yeah, oh, wait, there we go. Oh, I knew you had my back. I was looking at you back there. So, Julie, I have. So, a little bit about my background. In undergrad, I was a dance major, so didn't have to hide really any of myself. Worked at Disney as a parade performer, was able to be 100% myself. Then my career took a pivot, and I had a girlfriend who conned me into law school. And she conned me into law school later in life. So I was approaching 30, and I was pregnant at the time that we had on-campus interviews for roles. And for anybody who's gone to law school, that's a critical time. So fighting to graduate top 10%, thinking that I wanted to land the dream job with a large international firm, on law review, all while concealing a pregnancy. The on-campus interview process for law schools lasts anywhere between 3 to 4 months. So I'll never forget my very last interview where I went to the law firm. I couldn't button my suit jacket. And I was just hoping that they wouldn't find out. So I got the job. And then I had to navigate telling the law firm that I was pregnant and that when I started the summer associateship, I was going to have a newborn child. So I tried to make it look easy, but it was far from easy. I'll never forget, there were all these associate events, and again, like a lot younger people with different life circumstances, but they usually revolved around going out and doing things, which meant I was nursing in public restrooms. I was having to drink water at a lot of events. So I became the queen of sparkling water and a lime, and I would pay off the waiter to say that, do you want another Tito's and soda? Great tip. So yes, I have had to conceal it. And then the other thing that I'll say too is there's just certain pieces of myself that I felt the need to hide at certain points, whether that was related to my age and trying to look older so that people took me seriously in the workforce. A little bit ridiculous, but I did do that. Whether that was hiding the fact that I was a mom and wanted to be more engaged with my son's life. I don't think I realized it at that time, but when you think about having it all and you think about what that looks like, from the outside there was a very thick veneer and I looked like I had my life put together. My hair was great, my outfits were great, but on the inside I was really struggling, and I was missing the first day of kindergarten because I was traveling for work. And I regret those decisions. So what I would challenge this generation, my generation, to do is really to evolve the norm for the next generation of women, and we've had great conversations about that, where having a seat at the table no longer means you have to emulate predominantly masculine behaviors. You can come to the table as yourself, as your whole self, and that means bringing the parenting with you. It means being pregnant. It means nursing while you're practicing law. And it's not always easy, so sometimes we need to show the work that goes behind that.
Absolutely, and I totally concur with that. I remember early on in my career, I would walk into rooms, and I was the only person that looked like me in that room. And that was a very uncomfortable feeling because at times, to be quite frank with you, I'm wearing my braids today, but at times it was like, okay, I just got back from vacation. I like my braids. I got them done, out of the country, and I want to wear my braids to the meeting. But me being at that table and already kind of having a low self-esteem about, well, I'm the only woman at the table, or I'm the only brown face at the table, I automatically just went with the norm, took the braids out, because guess what? It wasn't what they expected from a woman in leadership at that time. Another example that I can share is that, as I've been building my organization for the last 14 years, I've traveled across the world. I've met so many amazing men and women. And sometimes, getting that big meeting, specifically with us being a vendor, getting that big meeting, that one meeting could change the trajectory of your business. So for me, our employees, I have, oh my goodness, I'd say 80% women, right? So we have 20 employees in the office. We have over 2,500 interpreters and drivers nationwide. It took me 14 years to build that, right? So of course I'm nervous. I'm going to a table. I'm the only one at the table that looks like me. And I have my sales director there with me. And it's just the good old boys, the good old boys game, I hate to say it, where we all sit down and automatically they think that, this gentleman is the principal. And I just go with the flow. You know what? I want the business. They get along with each other, so I just go with the flow. Versus acknowledging, you know what, I put 15 years, 14, 15 years of blood, sweat, and tears to get to this point. No, you will acknowledge me as the chairperson, chairwoman, whatever title I want to have that day, I will be that, and standing my ground in that. But oftentimes, because, you know, I thought about the girls back home and I didn't want to piss off the men, I just sat there and just let them think I was whoever they wanted me to think, and that was a massive mistake. So I would like to say to the younger generation specifically, be who you are. Do not be apologetic for who you are. God made you perfect.
I love that. And Lindsay, I think you bring up a really interesting point is on paper, you look like you have it all. You know, you have the title and you have, you know, you have the kids, you have the house, you have the friends, but so many of us, I think, on paper look that way, and then we don't feel that way on the inside when we're waking up. We're struggling. We have anxiety. We don't feel like we're doing everything. We're not perfect. And so I think it's really important to think about having it all doesn't mean perfect. You know, and you have to figure out what that means for you and having those boundaries.
And I think that's a really good point to what Brandy said. We have to show those imperfections too. Mm-hmm. And although, listen, it sounds like you too. I've gotten really good at playing the game, right? I can put on the thick, glossy veneer quite quickly. I've had to chisel away at that over the last few years because that's not what I want. That's not what the next generation needs. Kudos to the generation before us who broke through that glass ceiling and created a seat at the table. Now it's our job to say we have a seat at the table as ourselves, and us as humans are messy, and it's okay. So I try to show some of that humanity a little bit more because I don't wake up and look like this. My life is not easy or perfect, and every day is not simple by any means.
Do you think that being able to set boundaries, understanding who you are better, does that come easier with just wisdom, age, and experience? Or is there a better way that we can help the younger generation, or even people just in the room struggling maybe with the same concepts, have an easier way forward to be able to set some of these boundaries? Let anyone take it.
It's hard to set boundaries for sure. I mean, I see my life more as an integration, not necessarily trying to balance, 9 to 5, this happens and you turn it off. As far as the younger generations, I think a lot of this comes with experience, trial and error, right? What doesn't work before you don't do again. And I think having conversations with younger generations, I know it's hard for younger generations, as older generations, to advise them. It's always, you don't know if you're getting the point across or if they're understanding it. But I think that continuing conversations with younger generations is important and valuable. It's important they see that we also have struggles and that it's okay to be a little messy, but if we overcome it, to let them know that there's something on the other side if you are persistent.
You can do it.
Yeah, I'd love to tack on to that a little bit. Yeah. So what has been interesting is throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to lead people who are much older than me. I've had the opportunity to lead people younger than me and my age. And I'll say from what I've seen, it's not about age. It's not about generation. It's about knowing yourself. And it's about truly knowing what's important to you. So for me, I do not like to say work-life balance. Julie learned that when we were talking through this panel. Because balance implies there's failure. It's like this equalizer of if I'm spending 50% of my time on work and 50% of my time on personal, then I'm balanced and everything is right with the world. That's not the way our lives are. And by the way, that kind of is an antiquated mindset of work is something that I do. I go to an office and then I clock out and I go home and I'm off the clock and I'm a parent. That's not the way the world is anymore. So I think it's important to think of it in that light. I think it's important to know what matters to you, and nobody can say what that is except for you. And then I like to think of it in terms of decisions, and it's moment-to-moment decisions of where I need to be and why. And sometimes that might skew more heavily on the work side, sometimes that might skew more heavily on the parenting side, or sometimes that means me getting away from the office at 4 o'clock to go on a gravel ride with my fellow women that I ride bikes with, because that's how I stay grounded and I can come and show up ready to, battle and live another day. but we got to get out of the mindset of balance. And we've got to get out of the mindset of having it all. I don't want it all. I want very specific things. And that's probably very different than what other women on the stage want.
And quickly, I would like to say that, again, I think that having a tribe, having a dynamic group of women that support you, that you can lean on, that you can trust to go and say, hey, what do you think about this, both personally and professionally? I know that since I've joined the Alliance, and it's been a very short time, I've just been loved. I feel the love, and I've been in this industry for, like I said, 15 years, and it wasn't until I got into the Alliance and, been amongst some amazing women that I really felt like I belong. So thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, makes my heart happy. Thank you for sharing that.
Can I add
Lindsay,
on one more thing?
Yeah.
So to your point too, when you look at your tribe and you have people who might be part of your tribe who are not supporting those decisions you need to make and who are asking the questions of why do you need this extra time to go to the gym in the morning? Shouldn't you be with your kids for breakfast? Why? You need to evaluate those relationships. So that's the question I would ask too, or ask everybody ask themselves, is take inventory of why you feel like you're struggling in the areas you are when you ask, can I have it all? The people matter.
Tamara, did you have anything that you want to add? Nope, I'm good. You're good? You're good on that one? I think that's so powerful what you just said, Lindsay. I'm writing some aha moments down that you're sharing with us. But I think the moment-to-moment decisions is really important. Staying present in that moment and giving your full attention, your full self to whatever that is, whether it's a family obligation or if it's something that's happening in your career. And also the taking inventory piece. For some people, I think when you're not connected to your purpose, that's where some of that disconnect and your inability to set boundaries and really understand what having it all means to you or what you want to do. And I know the Alliance has done a lot of work and had books and speakers about finding your purpose. And I think it's incredibly important, but sometimes it's incredibly, incredibly hard to do. I think I still wake up and wonder what I want to be when I grow up, and what my purpose is, that day when I'm waking up. So that moment-to-moment decision really, really hits home. So let me ask you, Tamara, what do you think we can do to better advocate for change in the current workplace model to help employers create a culture to allow their employees, both men and women, to better not balance, but integrate their professional and personal lives?
Well, so I think that, I think with COVID, like I had said before, that really kind of helped transition the entire world and the way we look at things. And I think that there needs to be another look at how we manage our time, how we manage our work, I think transparency is important. There's a reason why, I have become more transparent about my lifestyle with my coworkers, my employer, the industry. I think that being more transparent with yourself and like the other panel members were talking about, just being more comfortable with who you are and not being afraid to be transparent about those things, that we can help the whole world change, help our employers see the importance of letting us all be who we are and what's important to us about how we work, how we live, how we engage others, how we raise our children. The dynamic must change. And that's one thing that by having these types of transparent conversations and being real and just saying, this is how it makes me feel, this is how, I manage my day is more important than anything. I mean, starting the Rainbow Risk Alliance, it opened so many doors for me. I never even realized how emotionally I've become more strong and not afraid of anything anymore. It's might also be because I'm a little bit older than I was before, but I like to think that it's not necessarily an age thing, like you said, it's an experience thing. So I just think that the more conversations we have, the more people feel more comfortable. People are more open to kind of asking questions and learning about each other and realizing we all are different and there's nothing wrong with that. And I may think of something a certain way and you may think of it a different way, and that's okay. But as long as we're willing to talk to each other and engage each other, so I understand you and you understand me, that's what's important.
Brandy, what are some of the things that you're doing within your organization, being the chairwoman, president, to be able to change that culture for others?
Well, I think it starts with the mindset of, again, just being open-minded, learning about others, right? And just really being a connoisseur of, tell me what you like to do. What does your family do on the weekends? What are some of your traditions within your family or your culture? Understanding others is the key focal point of my growth as a woman and as a leader, and specifically because, what I do day to day is I work with so many different languages, right, because we provide language services. So being able to understand who these people are, what makes them tick, and to also gain their loyalty, because at the end of the day, if they have another company that they may do business with, and we're scheduled on that very same day at 1 o'clock, they're going to go with the company that takes the time to treat them right, takes the time to give them a little extra, sometimes when it's not even asked, right? So I think for me, my balance is, well, a couple things. Work-life balance has to happen. It has to happen at home, and it has to happen in the office place. And to me, those things have to happen at the same time. And then also just being open-minded to others and just knowing your target audience of people that you surround yourself with, and then also surrounding yourself with people that you wouldn't normally surround yourself with, right? Mm-hmm. Just to have a better understanding of who we are as human beings.
I'd like to ask the panel your thoughts on, if the culture isn't shifting within your company, what can you do as leaders within your organization to help transform that? Lindsay, do you want to take that one?
I'll take that one. So our adjusters are primarily work from home at Walmart Claim Services, but for all of my team, they come into the office more often than not. And a couple things that I've done is I've tried to role model. And so a few things. I don't come into the office before 9 o'clock, and that's intentional. I'm starting work much earlier than that, but my team wouldn't know. I start my day at about 6 a.m. I check my emails, then I go work out. Then at 7, I check again, and then I have breakfast with my son. We take him to school, which I never did before the pandemic. It's amazing. I won't give it up. And then I come into the office. And the reason I do that is because there's other people who have obligations and want to be there for their kids in the morning. And I'm going to role model that. So I don't schedule any meetings before 9 o'clock when I can. And then I try not to schedule any meetings after about 4 o'clock, so that for those who want to go home and be with their children for a little bit of time before they go to bed and then pick up work after, or however that looks for them, they can do that. The other thing is, if I don't have any need to collaborate after a certain period of time, I'll go home, right? Or I won't tell people I'm in the office. People will ask me, oh, are you going to be in the office this day? I'm like, I don't know. It'll depend on what the calendar says and whether or not I need to be in the office, right? If there's a reason for me to collaborate and be connecting with people, yes. But the reason I'm not telling them, and most of the time I am in the office because it's the best place for me to get work done, I don't want them to feel the pressure to be there. Mm-hmm. So I'm very mindful of that. Another thing on my signature, on my emails, it talks about how I don't expect a response if it's outside of your personal working hours. Guess what? If I need you and it's urgent and I expect an immediate response, I'm going to call you. I know how to get a hold of you. And it's very rare that there's something that critical that needs to be talked about in that moment. So a few things there that we're doing. Also just giving grace. It's a transitory time for us coming back to the office. Just like it was a transitory time to go and work from home. I remember all of us at Disneyland rolling out our desktop computers and monitors because we did not convert to laptops. There were claw marks on those desktops, and I couldn't get our team to convert quick enough. And everybody wanted to stay in the office, and now nobody wants to come back to the office. So laughing about the moments where you forget your lunch, right? And then you've got to go to the cast commissary or whatever it is and eat the terrible food that costs too much, right? Having those moments of humanity when you forget your laptop at home, just realize that this is going to be a transition and it's okay. So those are some things we do.
And quickly, I find that, the more empathy I give And the more my executive leadership gives empathy, the more I get back in return, right? And that to me is huge.
That's everything, empathy. I'm lucky enough to work for a company that offers unlimited PTO. So again, I mentioned I have 3 children, but 2 of them go to a school where there is no school bus, and they go at 9 o'clock. I don't know who starts at 9 o'clock anymore, but they go at 9 o'clock, and then they get out at 4 o'clock, and carpool is ridiculous. So it takes an hour out of my day to do that carpool, but I'm able to put that on my calendar. No questions asked. I'll be out of the office. I can take time off that I need to spend time with my family or vacation, with the understanding that obviously work is important, and they have that trust that you'll do what you need to do to make sure that the job gets done. But I think companies moving to that model too helps a lot in that dynamic, whether you're caring for your family, a family member, et cetera.
I think every industry is learning, right, after the Great Resignation, of how do we attract and retain talent, right? Everybody's got to realize that you're gonna have to change, right? You're gonna have to start coming up with bigger, brighter ideas to be able to engage the workforce, especially the younger generations. They are very picky, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's good. You know, that's one thing I'm probably jumping ahead, sorry. We've taught our daughter. Am I gonna steal your thunder? Okay, go ahead, you tell.
Thank you for giving me the thunder back. So our daughter, Chloe, she graduated from high school in the pandemic, and it was rough for her, but she managed to have employment, and it was local through people we knew. And last year, she decided she wanted to work at Disneyland. And she was worried. She was balancing college classes. She joined a sorority, and she has a very active social life. But she wanted to work at Disney. And she was so worried about what they would think. How would she fit into that? How would she explain what she needed in terms of a time commitment and her scheduling? And my advice to her was, they're not interviewing you, you're interviewing them. Will they fit into your life? You tell them, this is what I have, this is what I can do, what do you have for me? And she was so worried about that. And I think that comes going back to the wisdom and experience that it's not going to hurt to tell them what you need, and if it doesn't fit, you move on. And she did, and she got the job, and it's been balancing, and she's working her little tootie off, but it was, I think, an aha moment for her, too, to come to the realization that I'm going to tell this big corporation that this is what I want from you. And I think she'll carry that with her. She's been doing it, and she's impressive.
Well, she's got impressive moms, so yeah.
Thank you.
I think that is important to teach our daughters and the younger generation that you can ask for what you need, and if that need can't be met, it's okay to move on to the next job, to the next place, that you don't have to stay because they said no.
Same with relationships. So we're talking about relationships too. Ask for what you need and being really clear about what the non-negotiables are, whether that's in the workplace, whether that's in your personal life. I mean, I feel like sometimes we don't give people the benefit of the doubt, but if you're not asking for what you need, somebody can't give that to you. So from a leadership perspective, that's incredibly hard to read the tea leaves. There are as many needs as there are individuals in this room.
And I just want to piggyback on that as well. I mean, the numbers don't lie. When you look at the Great Resignation, I mean, women, they just stopped in droves. I mean, we're talking about 60% of the labor force. And you look at historical data back in 1975, well, what did that do, back in those days? It crippled industries as a whole. Women are the backbone of the workplace. And until we are properly acknowledged, we will have this continuing problem going on, because guess what? We're leaving to take care of our families. We're leaving to be a caretaker to mom or dad. That's what's important to us. So understanding that need has to be met, and those things have to be talked about. Sometimes in interviews, this is what I can give you, but I'll give you 110%. while I'm here, I'll give you that, but I also need for you to give back to me as well. It is not a one-sided relationship. It's a reciprocal relationship. And I think until corporate America really understands and gravitates towards that model, this is where we're going to be. Short staff everywhere we go, no matter where.
Totally agree with that. So we talked a little bit women leaving in droves. We talked a little bit about also the mental health issues and anxiety. What are some of the things that you guys do to nurture your mental health, kind of feed your soul in this quest to have it all, not have it all if you don't want it all, but in terms of this integration of work-life balance?
We drink a lot of wine.
Wine is good.
Wine is good. Sorry, I had to be funny.
I love that. Yeah, I do that too. We're in California. It's on brand. I drink a lot of wine as well, but I have a great community of women. One of the best things of living in Bentonville, which is where Walmart is based, if you have not been to Northwest Arkansas, you should come visit us. It's pretty phenomenal, is the cycling community. And I am an avid cycler, which is why I'm in this wonderful, beautiful brace. But I have a great community of women, actually. It's predominantly women cyclists who get together, and we ride every Tuesday night, and then we ride every Saturday, and I disappear for 5 hours. My husband's amazing. I'm super lucky. I have a great partner. I take off, and there's no cell service, and we go out and we ride among the cows on the dirt, and it's phenomenal. And it's an incredibly diverse, inclusive group of women with an X. And I love it, and that fills my cup. And my boys are so supportive in that endeavor. So sometimes I go out mountain biking with my 10-year-old, but most of the time I'm out with other women on a bike talking about life and enjoying the cows and the chicken coops.
I would like to piggyback off that as well. For me, one thing since George Floyd, it kind of opened my eyes, you know, with me being a woman that's in brown skin, but I'm like every woman. I'm French, I'm Indian, I'm African American. So I see myself in so many different women. So to be able to be a champion of diversity, supplier diversity specifically, it is something that on days that I have dark days, which those days happen, let's be real, I'm able to wake up and I get a phone call from someone that says, you know what, you stopped me from giving up, you know? And for me, it gives me goosebumps all over my body, and it just lets me know it's not just about me. Yeah, I want to get through those doors. Yeah, I want to get my team through those doors. But I also want to get powerful women that maybe they don't know their power, and maybe they just need a tap on the shoulder to say, hey, you're amazing, because you are, aren't you?
Yeah, so are you.
So with that being said, I think that community is important. Talking about inclusion is important because we all want to belong.
Jen, do you have anything to add? Or do you just drink wine with Tamara?
We actually, we're very adventurous, and we try to travel as much as we can. And when we can't travel and get out of the house, we like to do these local races. We are huge fans of puzzles and all things that test us. And on our competitiveness, we're very, very competitive, even with our own kids, those poor things. But that's what takes us out of, our home and gets us on a kind of a different playing field, and it challenges us, and we come away feeling like we had a good time. It's something we can connect to together because, we've been in the same industry for a long time together, and the dinner table it scares off our kids. They go into the other room. So, we have to do something different than just the stuff that we're used to and know very well. And, we built a pool, and we enjoy our backyard, and we have a fantasy football league that's, if you think about it, predominantly women, which is kind of exciting. So there's a lot of, collaboration with them and talking about football, which is kind of different, right? It's very male-related for the most part, but we have a darn good time doing that.
I disagree with it being male-related, but okay. So I disagree with it being male-related, but okay. Football's good for everybody. It doesn't matter what.
For the soul, for the soul.
But we have 2 stud sons that play football, by the way. They're probably going to go to college and play football. So, yeah, I like to tout about that.
Well, I've appreciated this time with you guys so much. I'd like to follow up with one question for each of you before we open it up to questions from the audience. But what does having it all mean to you personally? I'll start with you, Jen, and work our way down.
I feel like I have it all now. You know, we've talked about balance, but it is an integration. So having it all is choosing what you want and getting it. And I usually get what I want, and I know Tamara gets what she wants. Our kids get what they want, and I think that we're good leaders for them and role models to having what you want, and I think that equates to having it all.
Yeah, I think I too believe I have it all. I have a great career. I have a great wife, partner. I've got great kids. I love my job. I love working in this industry. I've been doing it a long time, and I fell into it just like probably a lot of you guys did. So I think it's just about enjoying life, because we're not on this planet for very long, and making sure that you meet all of those goals that you have personally and be able to fulfill those goals. And if you have that dream that you wanted to be a famous singer or, you know, whatever it is, pursue it. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter where you are in your space. Just pursue it, because you'll find that you can achieve things by just pursuing it.
Lindsay?
So for me, as an overachiever who did her MBA and her law degree and has more paper than she probably needs, I would say having it all, to me, means being able to say no. And sometimes you need to say no, and it's about those times when you say, this isn't for me, and doing more of that, opting out of things, so I can opt into the things that matter most.
This is a big one, having it all. In certain situations, I do feel like I have it all, but then in others, I look at others that are less fortunate than me, that I live a pretty privileged life. I mean, we all do, sitting here on this panel. And so I think for me, having it all is also about reaching back to those women that are single mothers and they're working entry-level jobs, and giving them a breath of fresh air that they can sit on a panel. They can be in executive leadership. And I think that looking back to my upbringing, coming up, I'm Michigander, so go blue. We'll talk about that later. Just growing up in an inner city that was mostly, you know, hardworking, dedication all the time. I mean, my grandfather worked for Ford Motor Company, and to be quite frank with you, he didn't even know how to write and read when he got his job. He signed an X. And to think that that generation now bred me, so I'm thinking, what can I do for the generations forward? So for me, having it all is about leading the path, leading the charge, being fearless, and being your authentic self at all times.
Wow.
That was a lot, sorry.
That was good. I got goosebumps. Thank you guys so much. I'd like to open it up for the audience to ask any questions if you have any.
Oh, come on.
Any questions? Okay. Do you want to? Yeah, I think we'll be able to hear you.
I don't have a question. I just have a suggestion. And Lindsay, it's off what you said for learning to say no. I am at a peak point in my life, personally in my career, where I'm at that point of saying no, where you start hitting max. I think the pandemic accelerated a lot of that, I feel like, too, because the bar just gets higher and higher. So I would just say, to focus on a topic like that, I would hands down come and listen to everyone's take on saying no, because I think it's important for your own mental health to learn how to say no without disappointing everybody. Because that's another layer that you have to face as a go-getter, as an achiever. To let somebody down is like, it's just a catastrophe for you. So I would just share, I think that's a relatable topic if there's something we can do to focus on that. Just to support and help people going through it.
Yeah, so I'm a fellow people pleaser as well. Grew up with a single mom first generation college grad. So when you talk about lifting people up, I'm like, yeah, I lift people up too, but I'm tired. So I'm saying no, not everybody, just certain people. I can't lift everybody, only certain people. Yeah. So I got to pick wisely, right? I need something from you so I can give something to you. Saying no is pretty powerful. So, I constantly went to go get additional pieces of paper, and the reason for that is growing up with a single mom who was raising two girls and was battling cancer at the same time. She told me to never be underqualified for a job, and she told me to always ensure I can provide for myself and my family. And so that is why I chase degrees. And that is why I have to say no now, because we've been running and sprinting, and sometimes we need to slow the pace down a little bit. So I'm glad that resonated.
And for me, it's not about saying no, but that doesn't mean that's not right, right? For me, it's about setting expectation and managing those expectations. I do that with my clients. A lot of them may not like that, but that's just how I have always managed the way I work. I try to help the people that report up to me, to help them learn to set expectations and manage those expectations. And if you set those expectations up front, and again, do it in a professional way, but if you do that up front, that helps that relationship, and it helps clients understand, and internal and external clients, because I have to manage the expectations within the company as well. So by doing that, I find that that has those boundaries, and it also helps people understand what's going to be delivered, how it's going to be delivered, and when.
And one thing for me, I've learned in this industry, and outside of this industry, shall I say, people make mistakes, right? And my grandmother was an advocate for this my entire upbringing. It's like, it's not what happens to you, it's how you handle it. So I just want to make sure that, if nothing else, I leave off this stage to just empower women to say, you know what, if you had a bad day, have a bad day. Take ownership of it. If you make a mistake, take ownership of it. People will respect you if you go to them and you say, you know what, this fell through, but here's the solution. And that's how I built my career.
As a business owner, I'm really interested in establishing a, what's it called, unlimited PTO policy, but I don't know how to do that. Where could I go for guidance, or for someone to kind of lay the groundwork for how do you make that be successful?
Well, I feel that question might be directed at me, but I'd be happy to put you in touch with the people at my organization that made that decision. I can tell you from the perspective of the employees that work there, we are a younger startup tech company. I've got a lot of the younger generation that are working there, and it just seems to be working. Everyone does what they need to do. Everyone covers for the other, puts in the hours where they have to take them away. And so I
think it sounds lovely.
It's lovely, but there is a challenge, and I think you're also maybe even working a little bit extra because you're taking that time in the middle of the day, which feels so counterintuitive. It's not anything that we've been used to doing, and being able to make that schedule without asking for permission feels even scarier and weird as an employee, honestly. But it seems to work, and it makes me feel valued personally, because I do have this situation and I do have these children who require all of these things, and oftentimes I'm the only one who can do that. So I'd be happy to connect with you.
I was just wondering if you could address if any of you had mentors along your way, whether they be female or male, that you feel were very helpful in your trajectory and where you are sitting today.
It's a great question.
How long do we have?
I think we all have mentors, right? We all, whether they be realized or not realized, right? I mean, we're influenced by a lot of different things. For me, I was more influenced by the way I was raised, the experience I had. I had a father that worked late hours at night. my mom, you know, I learned from their relationship and realizing the concept of like never, I want myself to be able to afford and never have to rely on a man to be able to support myself and my children. And I've raised my 3 kids the same way. I told all of them, you're going to college, you're going to get a degree, and when you're done with that, then you're welcome to choose whatever you want to do. But you will get an education, whether it's trade school, I don't care what it is, but you will find that education, get a career path, be able to support yourself and your family and not rely on anyone else. So that was just from being my life experience. So, but in a way, those are mentors, right? They helped mentor me that way, whether it was something that I find to be a positive experience or a negative one.
Anyone else want to answer that question about mentors that they
You know,
have?
it's a difficult question to answer because the amalgamation of what you see in each one of us as individuals is a lifetime of stories. And it's difficult to call out any one specific page in that book and say this was one of those people or these moments that was a defining catalyst in who I am today or change agent. There is one, though, that stands out, and she was my leader when I was a leader on the labor relations team at Disneyland, and she was incredible. So tons of women who saw things in me I didn't see in myself and lifted me up and conned me into law school, right? But this one specifically, she had over 40 years working for the Disneyland Resort, was one of the first female managers ever at the resort. I had the gift of knowing quite a few women who were the trailblazers there and learning from them and being the next generation to come up through them. And there were a couple moments in my career, one specifically where I was up for my first executive role, and I loved my team I had. So I had a great team of 5 all-female attorneys from different walks of life and different generations. And we were kicking tail, and we caught the attention, this is how I ended up in risk management, of the general counsel at Disneyland, who had someone who was leading the risk management program who was retiring after 49 years at the resort. Again, another first-generation female leader at Disneyland. And I'll never forget, the general counsel came to me and said, "What do you think about leading risk management?" And as a labor and employment attorney, I was like, I don't want to touch work comp. I have no desire to do that. Kudos to all of you in this room. And I know nothing about workers' compensation, no. He's like, come on, it'll be great, what do you think? And at the time, there were 2 older gentlemen who were industry experts leading those various lines, general liability and work comp at Disneyland. And I said, how are they going to respond to me as a younger female executive with a law degree coming in? Fair question, right? Because if I can't make an impact, I don't want to say yes. And I spent a significant amount of time sourcing that role and seeing if it was a good fit for me. Finally, my mentor, who was my leader in labor relations, took me into her office and she looked at me and goes, okay, we need to have a conversation. This is an executive level role. These do not come along very often. You need to say yes. Are you crazy? And I was like, I don't know if I can do it. She's like, why do you think you can't do it? You're an incredible leader. There's not a doubt in my mind. You say yes and you do it. And that's one of the reasons I'm here today. So I am so grateful to her. She's still leading labor relations at the Disneyland Resort, and she's pretty inspiring. So we owe that to the next generation, to your point, to do that for them.
We have one more question.
Good morning, ladies, and thank you so much for being here. You've been not only inspiring, but encouraging, especially when you talk about humanity. So my question is not only a question along with a comment, but also an ask. I've been fortunate enough to have wonderful mentors when I was in the private sector or an employee, and great opportunities. And 11 years ago, I started my own business, which has been great, but I have seen myself stuck moving my business from micro to small business. And in my search of like, what is wrong with me? I'm afraid to ask. I'm always afraid to ask for help. So that's my ask. I'm actually looking for 1 or 2 mentors in business I don't discriminate male, female, LGBT, it doesn't matter. But how did you if you ever did have the fear of asking, how did you overcome it? Because, I mean, like my voice right now is trembling, like, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I have to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I would like to start off and answer that. First of all, I just commend you for standing up, and even though you may be timid, you sounded so strong, and I heard that strength come through the microphone. So I just want to, as a fellow business owner, I just want to tell you, continue that. Put yourself in uncomfortable positions, because you will see that you will grow and you will blossom and you will become a beautiful flower out of that. So just continue what you're doing. Secondly, I would say it's not easy. I mean, I heard over 200 no's before I got one yes. I'll go back to a story. So, at the time, my daughter was in elementary school. She's now a sophomore at St. Bonaventure. She's playing Division I lacrosse. And at the time, so I was, starting the business. We were just going nationwide. And so I had the opportunity to meet with the president of Delta DGS, which is a private sector of Delta Airlines. So I walk into his office. Well, let me rewind. So, I go suit shopping 3 days prior. And so all this time I'm suit shopping. I'm like, I don't know, can I do this? And, why does he, why am I good enough to sit in the president's office? And so I prayed, I meditated. And so this is like my first national contract for my business. And I go into his office and I just was authentic. And I said, listen, I'm not going to pretend more than I am, but I will tell you who I am. If you give me a shot, I will not let you have egg on your face for giving me an opportunity to perform on a high level. I will give you all I got plus 10%. He picked up the phone, he called his risk manager, and at the time, they were with Gallagher as their TPA. And he said, this is who I want to use, translation, interpretation, nationwide, done. Just like that, I was put on his panel. So then it was up to me to perform. And I think, that was something that forever changed my life, because there was a time that I didn't think that I was maybe worthy enough to be in those type of rooms. But now I go into those type of rooms and I am that type of room. I sit at those tables. I demand my respect. I know who I am inside out. And I would just say to you, you are already there. Just continue to believe in yourself.
And I guess I would ask the question back to you on what's making you hesitate. So is it the lack of confidence? Is it introversion? So I'm an introvert, a closet introvert. I'm in recovery.
You?
Yeah, I know.
Can't believe it.
That's why nobody believes it. But my goodness, if I'm not here, you'll find me with a book in a corner. For me, because I'm an introvert, I'm also an advocate. And when I'm talking about my team, the work I do, or I'm talking to share something for someone else, and the purpose is greater than myself, I can come out and you'd be amazed at what I can do. It's like the Wonder Woman cuffs go on, which is what this is, and look out world. And so for me, that works. I've always had the confidence. I really like to be alone, which is why I love to cycle on my bike, right? So I like small groups. I don't love big groups. But I've been able to do quite a bit thinking about why I'm doing it, which is never for me. It's always for someone else.
I think that's a good point that Lindsay brings up too, is more likely than not that person that you ask to help you and to reach out and pull you to where you need to be is going to be more than happy to say yes and be able to pour back into you. So I agree with all the ladies on the panel.
And if they aren't, then they're not the right fit, right? And then we move on.
Any other questions before we dive into table collaborations? I think we'll have about 15 minutes for you guys to talk amongst yourselves with the questions. Okay. Well, thank you, Jennifer, Tamara, Lindsay, and Brandy. Appreciate you so much for being up here today.
Thank you. Thank you.